You sit quietly in a room where the silence feels heavier than any sound you've ever known. It wraps itself around you, not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in the quiet way familiar pain often does. The air isn't tense, but it holds something unspoken, something that presses gently against your chest, as if asking a question you never wanted to answer. You don't move. You don't try to escape it. You simply sit there, breathing slowly, almost cautiously, as though even your breath has learned to tiptoe around the ache living inside you. There's a weight in your chest that doesn't hurt sharply. It doesn't stab. It doesn't shout. Instead, it lingers like a dull, echoing pressure you've carried for so long that part of you can't remember what it felt like to live without it. It's a quiet ache, constant, steady, familiar, like a shadow that learned your shape long before you understood your own. And you try to name it, try to trace its outline, but it slips between your thoughts like smoke, leaving only the sensation of being tired in a way that sleep can't touch. You feel an exhaustion you never chose. Not the kind that comes from long days or restless nights, but the deeper kind. The kind that grows from years of holding yourself together in moments no one noticed. It's a heaviness that lives behind your ribs, in the softest parts of you, in the places you don't show the world. You don't know how to explain it, even to yourself. You just feel it, always there, just beneath the surface of everything. And in the middle of that quiet weight, there's a whisper inside you, a small, hesitant voice that rises only when you're finally still enough to hear it. It doesn't accuse you. It doesn't blame. It simply murmurs a truth you've tried to outrun. Maybe it's because of him, my father. The thought arrives gently, like a memory knocking on a door you never meant to leave unlocked. You don't want it there. You don't want to consider it. Yet it returns, again and again, like a tide you cannot stop. You push it away, telling yourself it's nothing, telling yourself it's over, telling yourself it shouldn't matter anymore. But your body remembers things your mind learned to hide. And sometimes, in moments like this, when the room is quiet and the world isn't asking anything of you, the truth comes forward, soft but persistent. You sit with it, though you don't want to. You sit with the possibility that so many of the heavinesses you carry were never yours to hold in the first place. You sit with the echo of words spoken long ago, with the silence that followed them, with the expectations that pressed too tightly against your childhood skin. You sit with the pain of someone who should have been a shelter, but became a storm you learned to navigate before you even knew what storms were. And still, you don't blame him, not fully. You don't hate him, not truly. You simply feel the weight of what his presence or his absence has carved into you. You feel the shape of the emotional imprints left behind, the ones you pretend not to notice, the ones that grow louder when the world grows quiet. In this still room, with nothing but your breath and your heartbeat for company, you realize you've been carrying a story without ever reading it. And now, slowly, gently, you begin to turn toward it, not to judge, not to condemn, but to understand the ache that has followed you for so long, whispering truths you were never ready to hear. Before anything else, breathe, slowly, softly, as if you're giving yourself permission to exist in this moment without rushing, without tightening, without pretending you're fine. Let the air travel gently into your chest, not as a demand, but as an invitation to step back into yourself with a little more tenderness than you usually allow. You've spent so long holding your breath in emotional rooms that never felt safe, so long bracing for the next moment where you might need to protect your heart. But right now, just breathe. You don't have to defend anything. You don't have to explain anything. You just need to return to the quiet truth inside you, because you are not broken. Even if you feel cracked in places you rarely talk about, even if your inner world sometimes feels confusing or heavy or unfinished, nothing about you is ruined. You are a human being who learned to survive more than most people will ever understand. And survival leaves marks. Marks that aren't signs of weakness, but of depth. You aren't fragile in the way you fear. You are simply carrying the echoes of experiences that shaped you long before you had the words to name them. You are not dramatic. Your emotions aren't exaggerations. They aren't overreactions. They are responses. Real, human, valid responses to moments that overwhelmed you when you didn't have the power to choose otherwise. Your feelings rise from places where you were never given room to speak, where you learn to silence yourself just to keep peace. There are moments or to stay when you look at yourself and whisper the same quiet accusation. Why am I like this? Why am I so weak? But what you call weakness is often something far different, far older, and far more innocent than you've ever realized. It is a pattern created long before you had language, long before you could understand the meaning of safety, affection, or your own emotional worth. You learned yourself inside an environment that shaped your reactions before you even knew they were reactions. And those early shapes stay with you, quietly guiding how you feel and how you protect yourself. Sometimes, what you interpret as fragility is really an emotional blueprint, one etched into you during years when you were still tender, still forming, still learning how to recognize love or fear through the smallest shifts in someone else's voice. A distant father, a harsh father, an absent father. Each of them leaves a different kind of imprint, but every imprint is felt. None of them are invisible to the child who grows in their shadow. You learn to read the atmosphere like a second language. You learn to sense disappointment without hearing a word. You learn to watch for signs, subtle or sharp, because those signs told you what version of yourself was safe to bring forward. A father who stands far away teaches a child to question their worth. A father whose voice cuts too sharply teaches a child to hold their breath. A father who is there physically but absent emotionally creates a space where love becomes something confusing, unpredictable, or conditional. And you absorbed all of that long before you even understood the concept of absorbing. You weren't taught through lessons. You were taught through silence, tone, distance, absence. These are the kinds of teachings that don't feel like teachings at all, yet they shape you more than any spoken instruction ever could. And so, without meaning to, you learn to shrink so peace wouldn't break. You learn to soften your presence so tension wouldn't rise. You learn to make yourself small, emotionally and sometimes physically, because part of you hoped that being less would protect you more. When you needed care, you chose quiet. When you needed connection, you chose caution. When you needed to be held, you learned to hold yourself instead. You silenced your needs, not because you didn't have them, but because you believed your needs could make love disappear. You thought wanting anything might be too heavy, too demanding, too unwelcome. And so you trained yourself to expect less, to ask for less, to occupy less space in the hearts of others. You didn't become passive, you became adaptive. Because in your childhood world, emotional stillness felt safer than emotional honesty. Your nervous system, that small internal compass responsible for protecting you, shaped itself around these early lessons. Not to help you grow, but to help you survive. It tuned itself to danger before it ever learned to recognize warmth. It taught you to stay alert in moments when you should have felt relaxed. It taught you to brace even when nothing was coming. It taught you that connection might come with conditions, and that vulnerability might come with consequences. So when you look at yourself now and call it weakness, pause, breathe. Understand what your body has been doing for you all along. These patterns aren't failures. They are survival strategies. Old ones, learned in childhood, carried into adulthood, still trying to protect you even when you no longer need the same kind of protection. You aren't weak. You're patterned. You're shaped. You're human. And you're finally beginning to understand the blueprint you never had a chance to choose. There are parts of you that speak without using words. Parts you rarely notice until a moment catches you off guard. Your body remembers what your mind keeps trying to forget. Even when you think you've moved on, even when the memories feel distant or blurry, your body carries its own quiet archive. It remembers through sensations, through instincts, through subtle reactions that rise before you even understand why. These reactions aren't random. They are the physical outline of everything you once had to navigate. You feel it in the slight tension that gathers in your shoulders when someone raises their voice, even if the words aren't directed at you. It's that small tightening, that almost invisible lift in your muscles, as though you're bracing for something that isn't coming. You may not consciously think of your past in these moments, but your body does. It remembers the unpredictability of tones, the shifts in mood that taught you to stay alert. It remembers how quickly peace could change, how suddenly warmth could turn cold. And so your shoulders rise, protecting you in the only language they know. You are not the absence of what you didn't receive. You are the presence of everything you created in its place. You feel deeply because no one ever felt deeply for you. When a child grows up unseen, the heart learns to see everything. Every shift in tone, every change in expression, every rise or fall of the emotional temperature in a room. Your nervous system became a listener long before you had language for what you were sensing. Danger once lived close to you, so your body learned how to detect it long before it arrived. This depth of feeling you carry, it is not a flaw. It is a skill, shaped by years of emotional survival. While others listened casually, you listened with your whole being. While others shrugged off tension, you absorbed it in your bones. You didn't feel too much. You felt exactly as much as you needed to stay safe. Your sensitivity isn't fragility. It's a radar, a finely tuned instrument built in a childhood where you weren't protected, so you had to learn to protect yourself. That inward alertness, that ability to sense storms before anyone else notices the wind, it didn't come from weakness. It came from necessity. People who are loved gently grow differently. They expect softness because softness shaped them. But you You crave gentle voices because harsh ones built the foundation of your world. You long for warmth because coldness was once the familiar climate of your days. The tenderness you seek is the tenderness you were never given. And craving what you lacked is not a sign of brokenness. It is a sign of knowing what you deserve. Your emotions run deep because your story runs deep. Your reactions are quick because your past demanded quickness. You learned early that silence can be dangerous, unpredictability can be threatening, and sudden shifts can mean something is about to break. So now, your body responds even when the present is safe, because the past still echoes in your cells. People who tell you you're too emotional do not understand the world you came from. They judge your branches without knowing your roots. They see your tears without knowing the storms you survived. They see your trembling without knowing the earthquakes of your childhood. Your sensitivity is not an injury. It is your history, written in the language of the nervous system. It is intelligence, intuition, and emotional attunement woven together in the quietest parts of your being. It is the part of you that notices what others overlook. It is the part of you that loves with extraordinary sincerity. It is the part of you that still hopes for gentleness even after a life that did not begin gently. You are not too much. You are someone who learned to feel everything, because feeling everything was how you stayed alive. And now, even though the danger is gone, the depth remains, not as a wound, but as a capacity to sense, a capacity to empathize, a capacity to understand the emotional landscapes that many people cannot see. Your sensitivity is your honesty. The world may not understand it, but your soul does. And somewhere within that sensitivity lives the most truthful version of you, the version that survived, adapted, and kept feeling even when it was hard to. Outside, people tell you to be tougher, stronger, less emotional, as if strength is something you can put on like a heavy coat, as if your inner world hasn't already endured storms that would break people who say such things. They look at you from the surface, from the part of your life that they can see, and they assume that what's visible is the whole story. They don't see the quiet storms inside you, the old wounds that never had space to speak, the years of holding yourself together in silence. People judge your branches, how you bend, how you tremble, how you sway, without knowing the soil you grew from. They don't understand that your roots were planted in a childhood where stability was scarce, where emotions were not understood, where softness was rare. When your foundation has been shaped by turbulence, the world's demands for hardening feel like another burden instead of a guide. The world pushes you to be hard, while your inner world is still healing from the hardness you already endured. They tell you to stop being so emotional, unaware that emotions were once your only compass. They say, toughen up, blind to how much toughness you've already carried. They say, don't be sensitive, not realizing that sensitivity was the very thing that kept you safe when life was unpredictable. Inside you, there is a landscape no one sees, a landscape made of memories, echoes, and shadows that still move through you. You have learned to appear calm, even when your heart is remembering things it never got to speak about. You've learned to smile while holding pain that no one ever asked about. The world sees your outside, but it never asks about the storms you weathered alone. They say you should be stronger, but they don't know the strength it took to survive the years that shaped you. They say you shouldn't feel so much, not understanding that feeling deeply is the only way you learn to navigate danger. They tell you to let go, unaware that letting go requires safety, the very thing you were never given. Your inner world is full of tenderness that was never nurtured. It is full of questions that were never answered. It is full of softness that no one protected. And still, you keep moving. Still, you keep reaching. Still, you keep trying to be the version of yourself that feels honest. You are not weak for needing time to heal. You are not dramatic for feeling what you feel. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're simply someone whose inner world is rich, complex, and still learning to trust a world that once taught you fear. The pressure from the outside world is loud, but your inner world speaks a truer language, a softer one, and that language deserves to be heard. Listen, gently. Let your breath soften. Let your shoulders loosen, the way leaves loosen from branches in autumn. Slowly, naturally, without force. What you are about to hear is not meant to fix you, change you, or direct you. It is meant simply to remind you of something you have always known deep inside. You are not weak because of your father. You were shaped by what happened, yes, but not defined by it. You carry echoes of the past, but those echoes do not imprison you. They are reminders of how far you've come, not indicators of where you must remain. Your story is bigger than the people who wounded you. Your identity is wider than the absence you grew up within. You survived a beginning that did not nurture you. You lived through memories that taught you to fear instead of to trust. You carried burdens that no child should have had to carry. And somehow, through all of that, you still became someone capable of feeling, caring, yearning for softness, longing for connection. Do you see how extraordinary that is? Do you see how rare it is for a heart to remain gentle after growing without gentleness? The softness you carry is not a flaw. It is your awakening. It is the part of you that resisted becoming hardened by the pain you lived through. It is the proof that your spirit refused to turn cold, even when the world around you did. Your sensitivity, your depth, your quiet heart, these are not wounds. These are the openings through which healing enters. Your past explains you, but it does not confine you. It does not determine your future. It does not define the limits of who you can become. You are allowed to grow beyond what you were taught. You are allowed to rewrite every lesson. You are allowed to heal in ways your childhood never imagined. And healing does not need to be loud. It does not need to be fast. It does not need to impress anyone. Healing is like dawn. It happens quietly, gradually, in small shifts of light that slowly reveal a new landscape. You are allowed to heal gently. You are allowed to grow slowly. You are allowed to be patient with yourself. Breathe. Feel the air enter your body, the way hope enters a story, subtly, without announcement. You are becoming the parent you needed. You are giving yourself the voice you never heard, the safety you never felt, the kindness you were never given. Every time you choose softness over self-punishment, you break an old pattern. Every time you choose gentleness over fear, you rewrite your story. Every time you choose to care for yourself, you repair a part of your soul that childhood could not protect. You are not the person the past tried to make you. You are the person rising from the past, reshaping its meaning. You are the one turning pain into understanding, silence into wisdom, absence into presence. You are becoming whole. You are becoming real. You are becoming the caregiver you once dreamed of. Breathe again, gently. You are safe to heal now.